My name is Georgie Wan Marantika. I'm the moderator for today. I'm the president of the Indonesian Australian Business Council, and I'm coming from the old heritage city of Jakarta. So I think we're coming in from various points of the world today. Jakarta, Cikarang possibly, and obviously Canberra. And so it is an honor for me to moderate this session today, in which we will be talking about investing in Indonesia from an Australian perspective. And from that perspective, we have two of the major Australian investors in Indonesia together with us today to share their perspectives. And that is Linfox and Coca-Cola Amatil. And we also have the perspective of Indonesian industrial group. So we'll see from that perspective how investing in Indonesia and that experience, especially in this era of pandemic, has proceeded. But despite the challenges of the corona or the COVID-19 pandemic, we see that Indonesia is still very attractive to investors, and be it globally and also in Australia. So with that, I would like to introduce first and foremost a good friend of mine, also from where I'm sitting here, that is originally from Yogyakarta, who has succeeded in not just promoting Indonesia and Australia, but also guided the success of the Indonesian-Australian Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or IABC, that it has been entered into force during his term. And that is, and I would like to introduce to you today my good friend, His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Australia, His Excellency, Mr. Chris Legowo, coming in from Canberra. So, Your Excellency, it's good to be with you again today. Thank you for your support for this webinar, but your continuous support for the Indonesian-Australian relations, especially in the economic perspective and investment in trade. And please, Ambassador, could you open this webinar with your insight regarding investing in Indonesia and how you see the potential future looks like, especially in this new era and in this new environment. Your Excellency, Pak Chris, thank you for being with us, and I give the Zoom floor to you. Monggo Bapak. I apologize, Your Excellency. You might need to unmute, I believe. Unmute the...
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much, Pak George, for inviting me to deliver an opening remark in this very important virtual dialogue. Tentunya yang terhormat Pak George, Mr. Albert Davidson, Mr. Kadir Kundus, Pak Suteja Darmono, Pak Chris Evans, distinguished participant of this dialogue. Good morning to all the participants in Indonesia and good afternoon to all the participants in Australia. It is really a great honor for me to deliver my opening remark in this very important virtual dialogue on investing in Indonesia from Australian perspective. It is quite unfortunate that the global pandemic has restricted our ability to meet in person, but I'm thankful that we continue to hold this very important and timely discussion that it's quite unfortunate that we have to do it virtually. For that, I would like to express my appreciation to Indonesia-Australia Business Council for initiating and arranging this virtual dialogue. I always say IABC and AIBC have always continued to work together to bolster and advance economic cooperations between Indonesia and Australia. And to this virtual dialogue is further proof of such support. There are at least three major points that I would like to convey in my remark. The first one, very much in line with my portfolio, is the current state of Indonesia's bilateral relationship with Australia. The second one is Indonesia and Australia's investment relation and the opportunity for investing in Indonesia. So in line with my portfolio as the Indonesian ambassador to Australia, allow me to briefly provide an update on the current state of Indonesia's bilateral relationship with Australia. As ambassador, I'm so happy to see Indonesia and Australia's bilateral partnership has continued to grow over the past few years. Our bilateral relationship has been elevated back in 2018 from comprehensive partnership to become comprehensive strategic partnership. And as we all know, IACPA has officially entered into force on 5th of July 2020. And I do not want to fail to mention also the successful visit of President Widodo to Canberra in February 2020, during which several key commitments has been made that we believe will propel further our bilateral relationships, including the adoption of the plan of action of the CSP and also a roadmap for 100 days implementation of IACPA. In both these key commitments, strengthening our economic partnership has become a priority. The plan of action mandates the convening of an economic, trade and investment ministers meeting, which has been preceded by the senior economic official meeting in September 2020. Meanwhile, the roadmap highlights plans to bring Australian trade and business mission to Indonesia and hold a CEO roundtable in the hopes of advancing our trade and investment partnership and further increasing Australian investment in Indonesia. It is very unfortunate that due to the global pandemic, we were not able to make this plan happen in 2020. But as the COVID-19 situation improves, we do hope that this plan could be implemented very soon. Now on the second topic, Indonesia-Australia investment relation. Even amid these challenges that we had faced due to the global pandemic throughout 2020, it is very encouraging to see that there had been an increase in the number and value of Australian investment in Indonesia. Australia's investment in Indonesia throughout 2020 amounted to 1,562 projects, valued at $348.6 million, an additional rise of 400,000 USD and 513 projects compared to that in 2019. This put Australia as the 10th foreign investor in Indonesia in 2020. Australia's highest valued investment project in Indonesia are in the mining sector with a value of $234.1 million, representing 67.2% of Australia's FDI in Indonesia. It is closely followed by investment in the area of hotels and restaurants, electricity, gas and water, industrial, machinery, electronics, health equipment, etc. Meanwhile, in terms of location, a majority of Australia's investment are located in West Nusa Tenggara province with 289 projects valued at $170.9 million, or 49% of the total project. Increasingly, Bali, although it has the highest number of projects, yet it is only valued a total of $21.7. It ranks fifth in terms of Australian investment realization in Indonesia. Bali still falls behind East Kalimantan, Lampung, South Sulawesi, and even West Papua. Potentially, Australia investment in Indonesia should be one of the biggest based on these following reasons. We enjoy our close geographical proximity. Both Indonesia and Australia are members of the G20, meaning we are major economies in the world. Our bilateral relation status has reached comprehensive strategic partnership, and of course, and also IABC has entered into force on the 5th of July last year. But there remains a gap between the potential that we have and the reality of our investment relation. Australia is still only our 10th largest investor. In 2020, Australia's investment in Indonesia is far behind Singaporean and Chinese investment, accounting for $9.8 billion and $4.8 billion respectively. Even Australia falls behind the Netherlands, which has placed itself as the 6th top investor in Indonesia in 2020. Therefore, I believe we have to advance forward from here to aim for an even greater increase in Australian investment in Indonesia, particularly by taking the full advantage of the opportunities presented by our existing cooperation mechanism under IABC and through the enactment of the Omnibus Law on the job creation. This brings me to the third topic, namely investment opportunities in Indonesia. Again, about IABC. IABC contains a dedicated investment chapter as a framework for Indonesia and Australia's investment relationship to reach its full potential. The chapter sets out high-quality and modern rules for the promotion and the protection of investment. Indonesia investment commitments under IABC include the following key aspects. The first one, greater certainty for Australian investors to ensure the ease of doing business in Indonesia. The second one, the most favored nation principles, ensuring that should Indonesia provide better outcomes to investors of a third country under a future trade agreement, Australian investors will automatically gain the same better treatment. The third one, the national treatment principle that affirms Australian investors will be accorded treatment no less favorable than what Indonesia accords to its own investors. One particularly significant commitment Indonesia has made with regard to investment is providing guaranteed level of Australian ownership in several priority sectors. Australian ownership of up to 67% will be available for technical and vocational training, contract mining services and mine site preparation services, large hospital, aged care facilities, telecommunication, construction-related work, water, wastewater management, tourism sector for restaurant, cafe and bars, tour operator services, and tourism consultancy services, etc. 100 Australian ownerships for 3, 4, and 5-star hotel and resorts. While in the energy sector, Australian ownership will be possible of up to 95%. In this regard, just to give you an example, notably in the energy sector, Fortescue Metals Group has decided to invest in the building of a hydropower plant with a capacity of 10,000 megawatts and geothermal power plant with a capacity of 25 gigawatts. The value of the investment is estimated at $2.5 billion. And additionally, Indonesia has also committed to future liberalization for Australian universities setting up in Indonesia. Australian investment in Indonesia has also expanded to a very crucial sector in this time of a pandemic, namely health sector. As we all know, Aspen Doctor Australia has signed a shareholder agreement valued at $1 billion with PT Jasa Sarana to build clinic and hospital in West Java. Serco Asia Pacific has also collaborated with PT Jatim Geraha Utama and PT Rogolawi Success Mandiri to build an international hospital in Tuban, East Java. In support of this commitment and to provide greater assurance for foreign investors to do business in Indonesia, our government has also enacted the Omnibus Law on Job Creation. We believe the law will promote ease of doing business in Indonesia by creating better investment climate and providing greater regulatory certainty for foreign investors. This may be a lot to take in at the moment, but fear not. The Australian government is also in the process of putting together a blueprint for deepening Australian investment and trade in Indonesia. We do hope that this blueprint will be launched before the second half of this year, and you will be able to utilize it to assist your entry into Indonesia market. In closing, I would like to emphasize once again that this virtual event is very important, because despite all the efforts that Indonesia has made to bring Australian investment into our country, it is imperative, once again, it is imperative for us also to hear Australia's perspective on this issue. To this virtual dialogue will provide us with a greater opportunity to listen to how Australian businesses and investors view our policy and regulation, as well as to voice out any concern and obstacles that may be worried about when investing in Indonesia. I believe this will become an invaluable input for us to make further improvement. Having said that, thank you so much for having me in this very important virtual dialogue. I wish you a very productive discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Chris Logo. It's really good to be with you again. Your insights have been very important for contributing to this dialogue. And I noticed from your presentation, at least there's 3 more major investment groups, business groups coming into Indonesia: Fortescue, Serco, and Aspen. Yeah? So congratulations, Ambassador, for the hard work of the embassy in promoting investments into Indonesia. And Ambassador, I'd like to report to you that we're going to have a dialogue now with 2 of the major Australian investors in logistics and manufacturing and distribution in Indonesia, and with also the industrial group here in Indonesia. So we're going to have a dialogue here with Linfox, which obviously is a very well-known logistical company out of Australia, globally recognized, but have a significant investment here in Indonesia, with Coca-Cola Amatil. For Linfox, the country manager, Mr. Albert Davidson, is with us. From Coca-Cola Amatil, the CEO, the country director, Mr. Kadir Gundus is with us. And also from the industrial group's perspective in Indonesia, an Indonesian industrial group perspective, with Mr. Sutejo Darmono. So this dialogue will angle into that sector, Ambassador: logistical, industrial, and you might say one of the most highly job-creating sectors in the economy, manufacturing, logistics, distribution. And this discussion, I've just noticed the 3 gentlemen that will represent the 3 companies here represent closely over 1.2 million jobs in Indonesia. So if not more, yeah, I'm just calculating in very broad terms. But I'd like to report to you, Ambassador, this is the conversation for today in that particular context. And your insight, as always, has been very, very insightful for us. And we thank you for your support. Now, Ambassador, with your permission, we would like to now go to the panel to discuss their experience. As you said, this is very interesting because now this conversation will be investing in Indonesia from a testimonial from investors, those who have invested, and how they see the opportunities and the positive side of the investments, and also maybe the challenges. But obviously, I think because they're quite successful here, more of the positives probably. And so I will now begin with the panel, ambassador, and the audience here. Before I start with the panel, I want to recognize the audience. We have right now a good group of audience coming from, at least I've recognized, Indonesia and Australia. From Australia, I've noticed coming in from Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. And obviously from Perth, I want to recognize Phil Turtle, Mr. Phil Turtle, the sister organization of IABC, which is the president. He is the president of AIBC. So thank you, Phil, and our AIBC colleagues for joining in from Australia. So now we begin with the first panelist for this discussion, and that is the country manager of Linfox Indonesia. He is Mr. Albert Davidson, and Linfox has been playing a very significant role in Indonesia, especially during the pandemic, in keeping our supply chains intact and helping our sector in logistics continue to grow, and which it is still growing. So with that, Mr. Albert Davidson, the country manager of Linfox Indonesia, I give the Zoom room to you. Please, sir, may you proceed.
Thank you, George. And look, it's great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I'm based here in Jakarta. Very happy to be part of this dialogue. So today I'll just share a bit about some of the perspectives from Linfox around investing in Indonesia. I'll give some examples in our business in terms of challenges and opportunities, and generally what we're looking at, a positive outlook for growth and development in Indonesia. So thank you, George. Let me just try to share my screen for the presentation slides. Please confirm once you've got it on screen.
Albert.
Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. So look, today quickly I'll just talk through 3 areas and share some perspectives from being a large Australian logistics company in Indonesia. We'll talk a bit about the current presence we have in Indonesia. I'll talk a bit about investments in terms of where we would be looking to invest, and also share some perspectives on the future outlook in Indonesia. So thank you for the opening comments, and I think we'd probably touch on some of the areas that the ambassadors shared around the labour environment and certain areas of regulation, which certainly impacts our business. As a very quick introduction, for anyone dialing in from Australia, you probably know Linfox as a household brand name in Australia, being one of the largest logistics companies, but perhaps is a bit less well known for people across Asia. So we operate currently in 9 countries across the region. Interesting to note that of our 24,000 employees, nearly 46% are now outside of Australia and New Zealand. So touching on George's earlier points, it's very pleasing to see jobs being created and nearly half of our workforce being outside of Australia. Linfox has also formed what we call Linfox International Group. So we're headquartered out of Bangkok, and effectively we act as a separate entity for the Linfox Group. All of our profits are retained within LIG, and any investments and future growth and expansion comes from our international group. So I think that sends a clear message that in terms of investments and the growth of the company, we see a big potential upside, both in terms of Indonesia and then across the region. On the left-hand side is just a few of our various brands, which you may be familiar with. Interesting to note that now, aside from Linfox, our Bev Chain business, which is an industry solution for beverage, has now moved into Asia. So they're now headquartered, a separate entity in Bangkok, working with Singha. And also our cash logistics business, being Armaguard, is also moving into the Asian markets. So I think in that sense, we see the long-term plenty of potential upside to develop and grow throughout Asia, and in particular in Indonesia, which is a big market for us. Just sharing some highlights of our business here in Indonesia. This year will mark 20 years anniversary for Linfox Indonesia, which is a great milestone. I'm very proud to be leading the Indonesian team. We've been here for a long time. We work typically with very large strategic partners, one of which being our Unilever business here in Indonesia. Amongst other things, we operate what would be the largest facility in the Southern Hemisphere for a single client, which is a massive facility in Bekasi region in Jakarta. So that warehouse operation would handle over 1 million cases per day throughput, which is huge in logistics terms. We have a very large permanent workforce, which is great, but does present some challenges, which I will talk through. We also manage a number of vehicle movements throughout the country, and we're very optimistic in terms of trying to develop and grow our business into new segments. So that's just a bit of overview of Linfox Indonesia. Without a doubt, one of the biggest challenges for us this year and through 2020 has been the pandemic. And I know it's impacted many companies in different ways, but important to note, we're an essential services provider. We provide the, consumer products, toiletries, all of the things you need in your household homes. So it's been absolutely critical for us to navigate and negotiate the pandemic situation. We do have a very large workforce. And what we've managed to do successfully is implement very stringent protocols, not without significant investment expenditure. But we've basically been able to protect our operation through strict measures of distancing, contact tracing, and I would say well above the actual government standards we've implemented in our operations. So far, we've been successful in maintaining zero disruption to all of our operations across the country in 11 sites, which is a great outcome. And as mentioned, it's come with fairly significant investment and expenditure to make that happen. So optimistic and looking forward as the vaccines are being rolled out through the country. This will certainly make doing business and maintaining our services much easier in Indonesia. I'll talk a bit about the market dynamics as we see them at the moment. We still see it as being quite volatile in Indonesia in terms of the consumer demand. We see a lot of credit crunch impacting distributors and end customers that we supply to. And we've also seen a number of project delays and in terms of new opportunities, delays in this very uncertain market. So that's one thing that we've had to navigate. In addition, we've seen a rapid rise in the e-commerce space. We've seen a lot of industrial properties and facilities being taken up via e-commerce, and to some degree, some of the e-commerce providers competing in the traditional 3PL space. So we're under pretty tough market competition. We've also seen the proliferation of online transport platform providers, which perhaps some question marks around the sustainability of some of the business models that are being offered through these online vendors. So in general, the marketplace is really changing for Linfox, and we need to respond accordingly. Furthermore, there's generally a trend around nearshoring, so bigger focus upon the domestic economy, which we see is actually a very strong point for Indonesia, having a big manufacturing base and very large population. This has been very positive in a sense for Indonesia, and I think the resilience of the country there. not discounting the COVID impacts. So for us, certain segments have been hit harder than others. Certainly the retail segment and the industrial segment that we serve, inclusive of automotive, are quite heavily impacted by COVID. And it's a cautious approach, I think, to see how the market will pick up for those specific industries. With all of this, I think it makes decision-making difficult with supply chains and where to invest. But we're confident as things improve and we move out of the pandemic situation, there's great opportunities to try to invest and grow in Indonesia. And above everything else, as a service provider, we need to be very agile in terms of our solutions and how we work with our clients. So an approach we've taken is really around the consultative engagement, working with our clients here to navigate this challenging situation, and perhaps here in the image, some of the headaches around doing business in this environment. Traditionally, the areas we look at to work with our clients to help them is really around, firstly, their network. So where do they locate their warehouses? How do they serve the market? What does their supply chain look like? So we work very closely in that area. In terms of fleet, how can we be more optimal in terms of delivering products and uses of our transport and technology? Within the warehouses, how do you design within a facility? I'll share some quick examples later around different types of technologies and innovations that we're working on at the moment. Also around the movements within the facility and all the data analytics that goes with that. So in general, we're trying to work with our clients to help them navigate this situation. And really where we invest is very much dictated by our clients. We're a service provider, so we very much need to work with our clients on these types of strategic investments. Very quickly, in terms of where we invest for Linfox, there's really three key pillars for our business, being assets, people, and technology. So I'll just quickly share the key areas that we look at. In terms of assets, property developments is a key area, and I'm sure that our guest from Jababeka will share some further insights around the property development market. In general, in Indonesia, we're seeing quite a large supply of industrial facilities at the moment, and to some degree, our initiatives around property development in Indonesia and investments in property is somewhat on the back burners given the current supply in the market of modern warehouses. We're confident as demand picks up that outlook will improve, and potentially there's room to invest and build new facilities. Design and build. So this is an area where we help our customers to design and fit out warehouses. We have one project underway at the moment, and we're hoping as things pick up and we secure new business, we'll have greater new projects where we can design and build new facilities. MHE is also an area where we can innovate and invest. The example there in the bottom of the screen is what we call Vna Reach Trucks. So the idea there is really to be more efficient. So you have narrow aisles, better use of vertical space. And we're currently looking at bringing in the first new Vna Reach Truck equipment into Indonesia with one of our new clients that we've secured in recent months. And finally, fleet investments. So Linfox, you would probably know if you're familiar with the company, is a big Australian logistics and transport company. We're trying to find ways to invest in innovation with fleet. Above everything else, we need to be cost competitive. So we're looking at ways to innovate, to find better designs of vehicles and also implement better safety and environmental standards. That's really around assets. If I talk about people as our second key pillar, we have a number of initiatives underway to develop our local talent, including graduate programs. The image there is our leadership development program, which we hosted remotely across the region. So we see a key element here is really around investing in people to develop skills, and also our succession plan for our leadership team at all levels across the organization. On the job training, so we have around 1,600 employees. We do all of our training in-house. So we have our own training academies where we spend a lot of time working with our blue-collar workforce to develop skills and training to support their development. Labor flexibility, I think, will be one of the key challenges and opportunities for our business. We do face challenges with the current labor laws and the competitiveness or cost competitiveness of our permanent labor workforce. And we see one of the key opportunities here is working with our permanent employees to develop skills, but also the necessary environments and flexibility to be able to move people across different businesses and drive greater efficiency with our labor. And further to that point, in terms of our back office, we're working on what you call RPA, so that's robotic process automation, to take some of the more labor-intensive back office functions and try to automate. So where we look at all of our analytics, KPIs, our finance and HR, those areas to look to automate. Finally, I'll share with you some examples of technology innovations within a warehouse environment. These areas, we're looking with our existing clients to optimize the operations and take cost out of the operations. So firstly, look at things like ASRS, which are more dense storage systems where you get greater efficiency in the warehouse. Working with our strategic partners on automated vehicles, or AGVs, for movements within the facilities. Sortation systems for some of the manual activities and palletizing types of activities. IT solutions, picking technology, and our TMS offering, with basically a control tower support for the transport operations. In terms of future investment outlooks, I think positive trends, we're seeing that, of course, Indonesia is a very large population, very young population. So there's great potential for development of the workforce with greater disposable incomes. The trade agreements are very favorable with the IABC and other opening up of free trade. And we look forward to seeing more Australian companies investing. Through the forecasts and looking ahead, there is positive projections for GDP growth in Indonesia. So very much positive in terms of those macro trends. Some areas we're still working on navigating, and some negatives would be things such as the over-dimension and overloading environment, which we're trying to compete within at the moment. Some of these areas around regulations have been delayed. What that means for a company like Linfox is it's harder for us to compete because it's not a level playing field. And to some degree, the compliance and corruption does remain a challenge, particularly for some foreign companies investing in Indonesia. Unfortunately, the CPI index has slipped back a few positions this year. But I think all of the messages and the signals from the government and regulations is very positive from what we're seeing. I'll talk finally around the omnibus law, which we see is very positive. This is all about job creation and improving the ease of doing business in Indonesia. To be very upfront, with a large permanent workforce, it's quite difficult and challenging to navigate within the previous labor laws and environment within the Indonesian marketplace. We're hoping that through Omnibus, there'll be greater flexibility so that you can maintain permanent labor and be cost competitive, and also having a degree of flexibility to manage changes in the business and to help drive a more competitive cost base. So we see this as a very positive initiative, and really the intent for Linfox is to try to maintain our business, maintain our #1 client in Indonesia, but then also have a competitive cost base so we can grow and onboard new customers with permanent employees and expand our workforce in Indonesia. Finally, I'll share in terms of our outlook for Indonesia and Linfox investments moving forwards. We're looking to try to expand nationally, so moving outside of Java and into some of the other major geographic areas. We're looking at entering new segments in terms of cold chain, industrials, mining, and further expansion of retail. We're keen to invest in fleet, and we're looking for the right types of opportunities where we can deliver value. Referencing other operations that we have, we're looking to develop industry solutions, one of which would be an example from BevChain, being in a beverage industry solution. And finally, potentially is the path of mergers and acquisitions, which we've seen a number of companies being quite active in that space recently. So George, that's just a snapshot and hopefully some interesting perspectives from Linfox side in terms of the market, the potential opportunities. It is challenging at the moment, but we do have a very positive and optimistic outlook moving forward. And yeah, really appreciate the time in the audience this morning.
Well, thank you, Pa Albert. So before I move to the next panelist, just a quick question. Business is growing? You see growth right now currently?
We're on the cusp of growth. So I would say maintain and grow. We've been fiercely working on maintaining our base. We have secured one new business, which is very positive. We're working through an implementation at the moment. I shared some examples there of some of the equipment and technology we're putting in for that new operation with Vna Trucks and basically a new warehouse build. So I think it's a combination of maintain and grow. And we can appreciate from our clients' perspectives, big focus on cost, very challenging for them to make decisions on the supply chain. So we're doing okay, and we think there'll be a lot of potential for growth in the coming years.
Very good, very good. So very positive, yeah? You see a positive outlook. Very good.
Always have to be positive. Thanks.
Thank you, Pa David. Thank you. Thank you, Pa Albert Davidson from Linfox, the country manager of Linfox. Now we're moving into the next panelist. Mr. Kadir Gunduz is the president director of Coca-Cola Amatil, Indonesia and PNG. And it's an honor to have Pa Kadir with us today. And he is also on our board. He's an advisor on our board in IABC. And so we're very happy to have you here today with us. And so, Pa Kadir, maybe you can share with us and the audience of how you have experience as Coca-Cola Amatil in investing in Indonesia and the prospects in the future. Please, Pa Kadir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pa George, for the introduction. And it is an absolute honor for me to be with you and the audience today. And thank you very much for the invitation and opportunity given. We have heard the great insights both from His Excellency the Ambassador and also from Pa Albert in terms of opportunities in Indonesia and also market dynamics. They are very much in line with how we are seeing the country both from a short and long-term perspective. So hopefully it will come through strongly as it seems we are pretty much aligned with how Linfox is seeing the country. Before I get into the presentation, I would like to provide a little bit of background to the audience. Coca-Cola has been in Indonesia since 1927. It's almost 100 years now. And Coca-Cola Amatil has entered into the country back in 1992. As a business, we market, manufacture, distribute, and sell a wide range of beverages across all major categories via our extensive distribution network, and we reach over 2 million customers directly or indirectly. In terms of infrastructure, we have invested over $1.6 billion since we entered into the countries, of which $400 million US dollars investment has happened last 7 years by adding 9 lines, including 2 state-of-the-art affordable single-serve packaging line installed as a second country that we installed that line globally. I will talk about that a little bit more, and 6 Perform lines and 4 mega DCs. Similar to Linfox, I guess the COVID-19 pandemic has thrown a number of challenges our way, which really have tested our way of working and also our strategies as well. It hasn't been an easy process, but we have adopted well and well positioned to emerge stronger. Similar to Linfox, we have developed extremely stringent protocols by taking WHO, CDC, and Indonesian government directives, and tested and being testing the protocols regularly vis-a-vis the industry peers, as well as following the new learnings, if you like, that is coming from rest of the world. So why Indonesia? At Amatil, we see Indonesia as a significant long-term growth opportunity. We are attracted definitely by a large and youthful population, the emerging middle class, which is extremely important for our industry, and strength of the economy, the largest in Southeast Asia and the second fastest growing G20 economy, as well as the low consumption rates that we see of commercial beverages, which that poses a significant growth opportunity in the long term for us. We are also seeing the governments have been taking actions to improve operating environment from a legal and infrastructure perspectives. Besides that, the Indonesian government has implemented several structural reforms that aim at long-term growth, including the omnibus law that was covered just a minute ago. Moreover, the government places high priority on infrastructure development, evidenced by the sharply rising government infrastructure budget, and on investment, evidenced by deregulation and fiscal incentives that are offered to private investors. So these are really good news that coming out lately. So investing, we are not investing obviously only today, but also for tomorrow. I just want to quickly cover what are the key, some of the key areas that we have been investing. It's not only infrastructure that we invest. We turned our route to market, go to market into a strength with a wider range of distribution points, expanding our delivery footprint and improving customer service levels to support our over 3,000 strong directly employed sales force. We have also started to tap into the emerging startup ecosystem in Indonesia to take opportunities across sales and distribution networks. We are really encouraged to see that Jakarta is becoming a new strong hub for startups. And over the last couple of years, we have also invested 3 startups which are relevant to our core businesses. To increase our people capability, as our colleagues at Linfox is key pillar for us. You know, in today's world, you have access to capital, you have access to technology. What really matters is people, and you can only make difference with people. With that in mind, we have increased our training days by 7-fold by creating a comprehensive capability development framework covering technical skills and leadership skills. These programs won also externally awards. As Best Corporate University, we are selected as Best Corporate University and for creating leaders from within categories. Our capable workforce, we believe, is our ultimate strength. They have really transformed the business over the last few years and managed to adopt and not only survive, but thrive within the COVID environment. I will touch a little more on our key infrastructure projects over the next couple of slides. We are not, as I said, investing only infrastructure, and also we are not only investing in our core business infrastructure. Sustainability is really big on our agenda, and we make a lot of investments in that area over the last few years. We have seen significant reduction in energy usage. We are really very, very careful on this, and we have been reducing our energy usage significantly. Water usage, which is extremely important point, as we all know, water is scarce. Despite we get a lot of rain in Indonesia, but water is a very important commodity. And primary and secondary packaging and sugar content. We have recently inaugurated our first solar panel project at our Chibuting plant. This is the largest solar installation on a manufacturing site in Southeast Asia. In this case, unfortunately, we had the added challenge with the government, local agencies, and national electricity supplier dealing with the new technology. New technology. We are the second major manufacturer to make use of solar on considerable scale. So government and agency processes were not fully developed to deal with those requirements. Add to that, obviously, COVID didn't do much of a justice, and access for third-party contractors was limited, and then job creation law, which halted the permits being issued for a couple of months. These have been challenges, but we have, with the help from the agencies and the government, overcome those challenges, and we got our investment licensed, and it's fully operational. It really is one of the investments that we are really proud of. And we will continue on that. We are not going to stop here, and we have further investments scheduled over the next 2 to 3 years, and we will definitely apply the learnings from that. And in terms of technologies, investment and adjacencies, we are very active in pursuing new technologies, not only in terms of system enhancement, but also new bottles and production lines. In 2017, we launched our first ASSP line, which provided a bottle with improved shelf life, which is important when you consider the distances in Indonesia. And it also substantially reduced amount of PET required for each bottle. This was a new technology, and our line was the second line installed globally. We were just 3 weeks off being the first in the world. This year, we are installing our third ASSP line. The bottle has become so popular that this year we have just got the approval from the board to invest over $30 million for our third line. Also next year, our first PET recycling facility, a joint venture with Dynapack Indonesia, will go live. This is 50 million Australian dollars, and this will provide us with recycled, bottle-to-bottle recycled PET, as we will be using, these recycled resin in our bottles. So similar to most of our projects, this has a strong alignment with government sustainability agenda as well. This will also have the added benefits of supporting the local communities of pickers with a program in place to ensure their human rights are protected and they are really suitably paid for their work. In terms of operating environment, very quickly on that one, the key to really operating in Indonesia is understanding the operating environment, and in particular, the regulatory environment. We have experienced firsthand the challenges of investing in Indonesia, the numerous contracts and the license and permits required to operate, and the various interpretations and inconsistencies when dealing with the national and local governments. We have witnessed similar directives being interpreted in a different way in different levels of the governments. All up, we currently have almost 800 contracts and over 2,400 active licenses and permits and certificates in our regulatory compliance database. These are obviously that really poses a substantial challenge to maintain, track and maintain all those licenses and permits. And it is important, and team are doing their best to really keep me out of jail because you know, some of those licenses, if they are expired and not renewed, I you know, carry the risk of going to jail. So it's not a joke. Our main concern, obviously, as we consider future investment decisions and plans for growth, is the uncertainty of the public policy and the regulatory environment that I talked about. Prohibitive regulations can restrict our ability to invest and restrict our contribution to the Indonesian economy. Obviously, it is known by everyone. And at the same time, we are also seeing the efforts of the government to cut some of that red tape to improve and ease of doing business. And we really appreciate those efforts that are coming through. As Albert mentioned earlier, the new omnibus or job creation law has just came into effect, and we hope it will really provide further opportunities to simplify our way of working. In closing, you know, a couple of points I would like to reiterate. We have seen and continue to see Indonesia as a really great growth opportunity, and understand that it will take a lot of work to unlock that potential. The regulatory landscape is challenging, but with the right team, the right knowledge, and the processes, it can be successfully navigated. The government has made and continues to make significant changes to simplify the processes. One-stop shop for licenses and permits at national and local government levels, and omnibus law as some examples of government reforms. Even during COVID, we continue to invest, and we will continue to invest as we believe in the future potential of Indonesia. As I said, we are in Indonesia for long term. And thank you, and look forward to any question, if any. Thank you, Pak George.
Thank you, Pak Kadir, for joining us today, the CEO or country director of Coca-Cola in Indonesia. So thank you for your insight. And obviously, both you and Pak Albert and Ambassador Chris have mentioned something very crucial, and that's omnibus laws. So that's something I think we can get into in conversation in the Q&A. Thank you, Pak Kadir, for your insights. Thank you. And now we go to the next panelist, Pak Suteja Darmono. He is the director of Jababeka. And when I mentioned the over 1.2 million jobs that this panel, these three companies are employing, obviously a lot of that is in Cikarang, in the Jababeka area. So, Pak Suteja, you know, from your perspective regarding investing in Indonesia, you've heard Ambassador Chris, you've heard Pak Albert from Linfox, you've heard Pak Kadir from Coca-Cola. Please give your perspectives in this regards. The Zoom room is yours, Pak Suteja.
Thank you. So let me share my screen as well. Okay, can you see this? Maybe Chris, can you let me know if you can see this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So yeah, I think this is a topic that I want to share on our strategy, being we're a local player here trying to attract many multinational companies coming into Indonesia, being that we are also the biggest industrial estate right now in Indonesia. So coming with our business, we have these three pillars that basically supported our business as a whole. Mainly the land and township development, which was firstly started from a industrial estate, and then having an infrastructure as a supporting pillar, as well as hospitality and leisure. So we were started in 1989 when we first came as the first privately owned industrial estate, and we became IPO and went on all the way to 2017, where we established our residential and commercial area within the township itself. So as you can see within this milestone, our company has transformed, becoming into major player, not only in industrial estate but other facilities as well. But looking at these milestones, facilities like Dry Port, President University, Bekasi Power, which basically equip the whole development of our township and industrial estate, making it one of the best industrial estate in Indonesia. This is our founder, Pak Darmono, which has won many awards on many occasions. And so far, the project that we have gone through has established quite a number of presence within Indonesia itself, being that one of our headquarters is in Jakarta, and then the main flagship township and industrial estate development is number 2, which is in Cikarang. I think Pak George just mentioned a lot about some of the speakers being in this area. That's because Cikarang provided a very good attractiveness of its own investment area. And then maybe the other portfolios that we do share are special economic zones. These are some of the new trends that I think will be developing further on investment sites for Indonesia and also industrial estate. With this special economic zones, there's a lot of incentive that can be given from the government for the investors especially. And we are one of those private sectors that has attained at least 3 special economic zones. One key highlighted area is this Kendall Industrial Park. This is a industrial estate that we developed together with our partner, Sembawang Corporation from Singapore. So this is almost like a G2G project in a way, because Semcorp is a Temasek company. So I think looking at the investment climate, even foreign players are coming into this business. So talking about a little bit about the industrial estate itself, being one of the largest in Southeast Asia. This area, I think George talked about it quite a lot. Cikarang, being that our population right now has reached 1.2 million people, having a very strong attractiveness not only for international but locals. We have more than 2,000 companies located within this area. And I think one of the attractiveness as well has been pointed out by some of the speakers previously, that coming into this eastern corridor of Jakarta, there's a strong growth of infrastructure projects. And this particularly highlighted area in Indonesia right now under our President Jokowi, which he's known for implementing a new infrastructure all over Indonesia. I think going to the east of Jakarta is one of the best infrastructure being implemented, because at least there are 10 new infrastructure that I can name of that is coming through this township and industrial areas, which is new elevated road, MRT, LRT, even commuter train and high-speed train that will connect between Jakarta and Bandung. So that by itself is actually very interesting for investment, because this is a really growing area into the eastern corridor of Jakarta. And So as mentioned earlier, that we have this 2,000 companies located within our industrial estate. So why do industrial estate attracts many players like this? Unilever being one of the client for Linfox earlier mentioned as well. Mattel, Samsung, is because of the easiness of investing within industrial estate. Which our government mainly encourage foreign direct investment to come into industrial estate, because within an industrial estate, it's a very well planned estate, which we already accommodate a lot of the requirements for these investments. We help with the other things such as the infrastructure needs, and also the facilities, and also security, and so on. So I'll elaborate that further on the next slides. So I think Pak George also mentioned, and some of the other speakers as well mentioned about this omnibus law, which is recently been signed. And this is still a bit of a challenge for the implementation, which we would like to see further how things are going to develop. But the legal breakthrough of this job creation will be basically simplification of the licensing process, because previously there's so many licenses coming not only from the top government or the federal government, but going to the regional government and so on. So this is by omnibus law, it creates such sort of like a shortcut to simplify the licensing process, as well as simplification of other things such as the investment requirements, and also the the ease of land acquisition. This is by itself it's a bit of a challenge here in Indonesia. That's why it is very heavily recommended that you invest within an industrial estate or an estate area where land are crystal clear and clean. The status and so on, which if you invest outside could be a lot of status issue and so on. And also with the employment regulation efficiency that I think the other speakers has mentioned, that with this omnibus law, it will provide certain efficiency on those employment regulation that was previously already quite permanent. And of course, the research and innovation support will be given also in terms of incentive and other things as well. And I think I mentioned about the economic zone earlier, the special economic zone supports. This is also one of the agenda by our government to promote more special economic zones all over Indonesia to ease further for investment to come in. So I think some of the speakers previously talked about implementing new technologies within their project or their production-based manufacturing. And within Jababeka Industrial Estate itself, we are also implementing Industry 4.0. One of it is this JFAS, which basically help with the licensing for our tenant. So when investment comes in, and you have to deal with so many different bureaus of the governments due to different licenses. Using this JFAS, we will link you directly to those government and make it a one-stop service for you to take care of your licenses. And we will also link this with the OSS system that is introduced by our BKPM, which is the board of the Investment Board of Indonesia. And so that's why we can help you to get your licenses also via this application within our estate. And other things that we introduce as well on the one-stop service, we introduce many other apps of Jababeka, such as the ICTEL and Yuk. And this is, I think, very locally used here within our estate. The ICTEL provides a very good connection for the fiber optic and also the internet providers within our area, providing you with the best broadband width service as well. And Yuk being another payment gateway that can be used within our ecosystem. And another thing that we try to introduce within our industrial estate is to create this new Fab Lab, where the Fab Lab becomes an area where all these players from not only the manufacturing, the industrial people, but startup and the community and the students come together and meet up and trying new technologies to be implemented to further enhance this so-called, I think Josh earlier mentioned that our economy is still pretty much 2.0, but within Jababeka it's already 3.0. But now we are upgrading to become Industry 4.0. Some of the other speakers as well already mentioned some of those Industry 4.0 that has been implemented within their factories. Within this Fab Lab, there's many solutions that we can offer, many different alternatives that I think can be a test lab or test trial for these manufacturing companies to explore. So we sort of provide this as well within our industrial estate as a facility. So I think also in respect to facilities like water and gas and telecommunication and power plant and so on, having your investment coming into an industrial estate such as us, you're pretty much guaranteed of good supply of all these services. So, and we also provide a very good service on the security. So this is really help you to ease your problem when you're investing in Indonesia with all this very dynamic environment that's happening around Indonesia. So again, I think I mentioned about the power plant being that we are one of the only industrial estate to have its own power plant, because many of the power plants in Indonesia is also being supplied by the state-owned power plant, whereas we are supplied by our own Bekasi Power and Cikarang Listrindo. So electricity is pretty much not an issue as well within our area. So I think I talk a lot about industrial, but maybe Linfox earlier mentioned about logistic and distribution as well being one of the happening area going forward. And this is particularly true for example, there's this company called Logos, which is also a logistic and a company from Australia that has recently come into Indonesia and set up many distribution center around this Eastern Corridor particularly. As you can see within this Eastern Corridor, there's so many industrial estate already existed. So this is an area of growth for this particular area. And Jababeka having a dry port, or the only dry port at the moment operating, is also a very good value proposition for this sort of facility that we can have to be implemented in this area as well. So some of the top partners that we have already on the shipping lines and the third-party logistic provider and also other logistic providers are all of this. So they are pretty much operating within our area, including Linfox with our tenant Unilever. And maybe a little bit to touch on IACEPA, which already taken place. I think many of the speakers as well has talked about it, that our president has signed this IACEPA with the Prime Minister of Australia, which has attracted some of the particular investments directly to Indonesia. I think one of the main university in Australia where I was a graduate and alumni of the university is Monash University. They just announced that they are the first foreign university in Indonesia that just established itself. And also there is this CQU, which is Central Queensland University from Australia as well. And they have signed up with Bakri. So we're looking at many other investment that are coming in, not only in logistic manufacturing, but also education and probably other sectors. Possibly real estate could be one that could be interesting going forward as well. So I think that is my take on the investment side for the time being, but I'm ready anytime to receive any question further from the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Suteja, for a very insightful presentation. Obviously, Jababeka is in many sectors, yeah, not just industrial, you're into energy, ICT now, and so you've diversified into into multiple sectors. So now we're going so there are some questions on the chat, and due to time, I'm going to summarize these questions and also some text messages that are coming into me for the Q&A. So I'll summarize it into two folds. Number one for Pak Albert and Pak Kadir. So the audience here today are mostly members and also guests. Yeah. But I've noticed we've got members, even our senior advisor emeritus, Pak Muktarianto. Thank you, Pak Muktarianto, for joining. I've noticed our past president, Pak Cristalisto, is here. Thank you for joining. And I've also noticed our friends from Australia, from IABC, Phil Turtle, Peter Craven, IABC Tasmania, David Wijaya, IABC Queensland. So this is a good grouping of members here today from both sides of the oceans. Now, what I'd like to summarize these questions into two, and this one is for Pak Kadir and Pak Albert, and then one for Pak Suteja. And for Pak Albert and Pak Kadir, the question is related to training, and it's coming from our board member, actually, Mr. John Ackerman, and that is related to the issue of training regarding number one, firstly, how to appropriately develop training programs for employees, and then secondly, because you are all in multiple countries, are there any appropriate and any easily administrated opportunities to provide out-of-country on-the-job training? So that's for Pak Albert and Pak Kadir, recognizing that the two of you mentioned training a bit in your presentations. And then now in regards to Pak Suteja, because you're coming from the younger generation here, Pak Suteja, if I may say, the millennial, yeah? You would say you're still a millennial, right, Pak? Or
Yeah.
On the upper end of millennial. So I noticed in your presentation you have now. How do you see the digital economy empowering you might say, nuts and bolts economy where you're in, because you're involved in the nuts and bolts, right? But how do you see the digital economy empowering that? And and then for the three of you, as you make your last comments also in regards to these questions, is how do you see the future of Indonesia, especially in terms of Australian companies investing in Indonesia? And what would you suggest? So we're going to go around about the circle again. And because due to time, because we're allocated to 12, could you make your comments, including that particular ending remark on your suggestion for Australian companies? And so again, let's start with Pak Albert Davidson, the country manager of Linfox Indonesia, and then Pak Kadir, and then we'll end up with you, Pak Suteja. Pak Albert, the Zoom room is yours.
Okay, thanks, George. Look, yeah, really good question. So on training, I think there were two parts to it. One was about the local skills development and developing local programs, and then the other was about regional types of initiatives. So perhaps for the first part, we still do a lot of training in-house, and we do that because our business is quite dynamic. We do have a lot of flex in our business where we need to ramp up at times. So very heavy recruitment, training, development. So a lot of what we do at our blue collar workforce is in-house because we can train the content. And also we're processing a lot of people in terms of recruitment and onboarding. So it's kind of the nature of what we do and very specific hands-on skills types of training. So we've found that to be very effective. I think the interesting thing now with omnibus law introduction is you'll see greater provision of agency labor types of operators and outsource labor types of company. At the moment, we're not seeing a labor provider with the types of skills and the types of employees that we can quickly onboard and you know, put into our operations. So I think over time, as that develops, you'll probably see more outsourced companies, labor agency companies having greater training and more skilled employees. So we're optimistic about that, but at the moment, it's quite in-house and hands-on what we do at the moment. In terms of regional, though, we've got quite a few initiatives. We run a graduate program across all of Linfox, which has been very successful, and pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID, we actually rotate graduates across various countries and operations. So we've found that very effective. We've launched the graduate program this year in the pandemic environment, and it's going well. So we have rotations of employees, and they regularly engage across the region and get training on a regional basis. And the second aspect is our leadership development program. So we've also hosted training across the region through Australian universities and through our international group, which was found very valuable to give our leadership team some exposure and network internally. So I get that middle management and future leadership team level. We've found it works very effectively to host these sort of regional programs. And even despite of being in a COVID environment, we've been able to do so.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Albert, thank you for that. And so now we go to Pak Kadir Gunduz. Those two particular questions and any other ending comments you would like to make. Pak Kadir, the Zoom room is yours.
Thanks, Pak George. I, in fact, very briefly replied Pak John, but let me elaborate a little bit on that. We see the capability building in several layers. Obviously, one is your frontline, how you develop frontline, and based on our experience, we definitely suggest those companies that coming into Indonesia to develop their really technical training programs and also tailor-made programs to their needs and strategies, based on their needs and strategies for the middle management leadership programs as well. So at Amatil, we have 10 functional academies, we call, and all the training programs, the modules that are developed for those technical academies are developed in-house based on our needs. And we have seen substantial impact of that on the business, particularly on the front line, on the manufacturing side, supply chain side, and the sales side. The middle management, definitely you need middle level leadership programs that again serves to your strategy and your needs. Strongly recommended that should be developed in-house. When it comes to senior leadership, obviously we do that. We collaborate with third party and we brief them based on our needs, and they tweak their programs and they deliver those programs. We have internal recruited trainers, and all the technical trainings and the middle management leadership training programs are delivered by our own teams. And the fourth layer to that is graduate program. Over the last 6-7 years, we have taken around 700-800 graduates in, and even last year at the peak of the COVID, we never stopped taking in graduates, because we believe that they really bring a lot of energy and different perspectives. We have got very well, oiled machine, if you like. Every year we take around 100, 110 graduates in, and we put them through the training program, multifunctional program between the 4 to 6 months, and then we deploy them into the positions, and they do the real job. Second part of the question was around talent, exchange. We do that. I'm really happy to see we are able to send a few Indonesian talent across other Amatil operations in Australia, in Papua New Guinea. Is no longer on the receiving end of the talent, but exporting talent. We definitely recommend that for the regional companies, but still you see a little bit of difficulties in really getting the permits. When you send talent across for short or medium term assignments, but it definitely helps a lot in terms of building capability and also sharing best practices between the countries. My probably closing remarks would be the repetition of what I said during my presentation. Enormous opportunities in Indonesia. Like any other emerging market, there is one thing that is certain, is uncertainty and volatility. So we should really all expect that volatility is part of the operating environment, and we should not get annoyed. We should persevere and look long term. As long as long term direction is upwards, you are on the right track. That's how we see it, and we believe in the long term opportunities in Indonesia. And thank you again, Pak George, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Pak Kadir. And again, Pak Kadir, obviously Coca-Cola playing a big role in the economy. And my favorite drink is Coca-Cola Zero. That's my favorite drink. So thank you, Pak Kadir. Pak Kadir is on the board of IABC as our advisor. And I also want to recognize other board members here on IABC that are with us, Pak Peter Fanning, Pak Tim De La Hunti from Combank, and our other board members that are with us here today. Thank you. And now coming in from Cikarang, Pak Suteja, your remarks before we conclude.
I think two topics that you mentioned is about the digitalization economy, how it will empower Indonesia probably. Well, the digital economy is very interesting. I think some of the speakers have highlighted also this is another growth area in Indonesia, especially coming on the e-commerce side. But I like to pinpoint about one key areas which I think is also a growing area, not so much of a digitalization, but more maybe on Industry 4.0. I mean, the other speakers are, pretty much doing manufacturing and logistic as well. This is very much related to Industry 4.0, I would say. There's a lot of needs, as I mentioned, that right now Indonesian companies are still moving in this Industry 3.0. A lot of this system like robotic, IoTs, and automation, even 3D printing have not been properly introduced here in Indonesia, or probably some of these people are not yet very familiarized with this concept. But I think the Fab Lab that I mentioned could be one of the trigger that we can set up kind of like an innovation hub where people can learn about this. This is a very good setup where our Minister of Industry is very much in support of this initiative, because they themselves are trying to set up this innovation hub, but it's not an easy thing because they do not have the ecosystem. But an ecosystem like Coca-Cola Amatil here, being also in Cikarang, Linfox maybe a very good integrated logistic distribution center can show some of these cases that how Industry 4.0 can be implemented and how can this be taken into further expansion of this area to just improve manufacturing and also distribution, for example. So this is an area, I think, of growth in particularly in Cikarang area, I think, Pa George, if I may say, because the ecosystem is pretty much there. And but digitalization itself with the e-commerce and other things, that would help with the Industry 4.0. It's like when you talk about a train, being that you need to have the locomotive, but the carriage needs to have its content as well. So the Industry 4.0 will act as a content to that. And the locomotive can be the e-commerce or the digitalization itself. So I think that's what my take on the digitalization itself. But on Australian economy in investing in Indonesia, there's a lot of areas that's open to investment in Indonesia. A lot was mentioned on maybe on mining and other sectors, but other sectors are growing as well. For example, education. I just pointed out that two foreign universities just decided to come into Indonesia because there's a lack of education here in Indonesia. Probably going forward, also medical is another big attention that needs to have attention from people. Jababeka here, for example, we already set up a retirement home. For example, we work together with a Japanese company. They identified that this senior market would be one that may be growing in Indonesia. This could be an area where Australia is quite strong to go into. But in general, I think the advice that I would give to potential investors from Australia would be to find a good local partner, because the environment is just what the other speaker said. It's not an easy environment here in Indonesia. And one way to mitigate this is to find a good local partner that you can really trust and help your way around, help your way to navigate for you with the licensing, with the government, with the local situation and the market as well. So this is a very good point that I think I want to reiterate. Thank you, Pak George.
Thank you, Pak Suteja. So I think very fitting. Innovation Hub, Industrial Revolution 4.0, very fitting opportunities, I think in the future that you just mentioned. And that's going to be a conversation that we can have in and of itself. Thank you, Pak Suteja. And so we're going to end this, but I'd like to thank our friends from coming again from the other side of the ocean, from Australia. I see here Mike Stevens, an Industrial Revolution 4.0 expert. And I see obviously our IABC friends. I mentioned again, Phil Turtle, Peter Craven, David Vijaya, and I want to recognize ITPC. I see ITPC Sydney is here with us today. Our consulate generals in Melbourne and Sydney are also here with us today. And obviously our colleagues in the Indonesian embassy in Canberra, led by Ambassador Chris Legowo. So I want to thank again Ambassador Chris Legowo for the opening remarks. And I notice he's still monitoring and following our discussions. So gentlemen, ladies, audience, this is a quick 1.5 hour discussion on investing in Indonesia. We've listened to significant Australian investors in Indonesia providing their testimonial. Mr. Albert Davidson, the country manager of Linfox Indonesia, Pak Kadir Gunduz, the country director of Coca-Cola Amatil, and also Pak Suteja Darmono from the Indonesian industrial business group Jababeka. And hopefully this conversation will trigger some ideas and in fact trigger endeavors into Indonesia and also vice versa with Australia into Australia. So, we're looking at both angles because investments can always be looked at both angles. And so this concludes our discussion today because we've just gone up to a little bit over 6 minutes, but I want to recognize and thank all of the audience here today, and especially the panelists who have provided their time. Pak Albert Davidson, the country manager of Linfox Indonesia, Pak Kadir Gunduz, the CEO of Coca-Cola Amatil in Indonesia, and obviously on our advisory board here in IABC, and also Pak Suteja Darmono. Jababeka is one of our loyal and big supporters in IABC. Thank you, Pak Suteja. And I want to recognize and thank again the Indonesian embassy in Canberra, led by Ambassador Chris Logo, for providing the time and providing the insights. Thank you, everyone. And we say in Indonesia, salam sehat. Yeah, I think if you
Thank you,
translate that in salam sehat, salam sehat.
Salam
Thank you.
sehat.
Thank you, everyone.